what you're starting to see now is these sporting events becoming shopping events.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like 10 years ago, everyone I knew who was into Formula One was a 50-year-old man. And now every woman I speak to is really into Formula One. The National Year of Reading, which is an initiative to get more young people to read. The stats that they had was that 51% of young readers discovered new books through TikTok. And I just think it's, again, like one of those things where people dismiss TikTok and...
Dismiss young people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
they're just on their phone. But if they're on their phone looking for a book to read, that's pretty cool.
We're going to get to the point where these AI agents are actually going to be shopping for us.
Don't type anything anymore. Just while constantly talking into my phone.
I had a very bizarre conversation about 4 weeks ago with a chatbot called Luna, or I should say an AI agent.
Yes.
Called Luna. So the need stuff, the chore stuff, I think that will get automated really quickly.
Yeah.
Shopping is the one thing that almost everybody does, but somehow it gets talked about as if it's frivolous.
But what we buy shapes our high street, our homes, our culture, and pretty much everything in between.
Welcome to the Shopping Forecast. I'm Catherine Erdly.
And I'm Elizabeth Stiles.
We're retail experts, lifelong shoppers, and we're fascinated why people buy what they buy.
In each episode, we'll unpack the biggest stories in shopping, consumer behaviour, and the high street.
We'll explore the psychology behind the trends and share what we've been shopping for and why.
Because if you want to understand people, society, and where we're heading next,
take a look at what we're buying right now. Elizabeth, let's start off with what you've been buying this week.
I got the most beautiful dress you have ever seen. It's actually from a brand called Doan, which I've had my eye on since I completely binged The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Right.
Did you watch Summer I always ask you this.
Yes,
and I can't
watched
remember
a couple of episodes and then my daughter binged it without me.
So. Okay. You need to watch it. It's so good. And basically, The Summer I Turned Pretty, Belly, the main character, was pretty much wearing Doan throughout, even though she was 15 and had no money. But that is also partly why this episode and series did so well, is because of the aesthetics and the way that it was shot and what they were wearing and the styling of it. And I actually listened to a whole other podcast about just the costumes on The Summer I Turned Pretty. And so ever since then, I was like, I need to buy something from Doan. And we had our podcast launch party. And it was in a shop called Rove on Portobello Road, Rove, London, ROVE. Shout out to Alicia and Lily, who hosted our party to celebrate the launch of this podcast. And yeah, just wanted to mark the occasion of having a second podcast.
I love it.
Yes.
And also, what's interesting about what they do as well, they curate American brands that maybe aren't as common over here. So presumably Doan's not available everywhere.
No, very rare. I've never, it's like a precious jewel or something. Like, I've never seen one in real life, but I haven't. Like, I bought something off Vinted, but it wasn't amazing. And it goes for really high on Vinted as well. It's got quite high resale value. So I was always trying to get something good. So yeah, that's what I got this week.
That's a very exciting purchase, I have to say.
What did you get?
Mine is decidedly less exciting. I spent an upsettingly large amount of money on cat onesies.
Why?
Just to be clear, this is not for fancy dress. This is, as you know, I've recently adopted a cat, Winter, who needed to be spayed, and I really hate the cone of shame. Whenever I've had an animal who's had surgery, I always feel just so terribly bad for them. I mean, I'm such a soft touch when it comes to my pets anyway. That I feel terrible with them with a cone, and it bangs into things, and they're often really uncomfortable and they can't get comfy. So I prefer using the surgical suits. But what happened was I bought one online, and this is such a good example of you need to actually read the instructions. And of course, I didn't read the instructions because what they said was measure your cat from their neck to their tail.
Right.
Well, have you ever measured your cat?
Of course not.
Would you know how many centimetres long he is? No. But I thought to myself, it's okay, I'll just look at the weight recommendation because I know what she weighs. She's just been weighed at the vet, so she's 3.1 kilograms. Right, fine, I'll get small.
That's tiny.
Yes, I know. She's
all fluff.
She's all fluff.
Yeah.
She's very skinny, but she is actually quite long. So first of all, I bought this onesie. I got it on her. Well, I gave it to the vet. They put it on directly after surgery. I got home. She'd peed on it. So straight away, I have to go back to the vet and basically say, because I bought this one online, and then I had to say, I couldn't figure out where I could get a cat onesie from, but the vet said, don't worry, we've got some. So went back to the vet, and then they were like, okay, well, we think she's this size, gave me one, got it home, put it on her. Anyway, she basically I can't even describe to you how she walked. It was so bad. She couldn't move her little legs. So she looked like a little wind-up toy that was kind of walking around, and I felt terrible. So now I own 2 onesies, cat onesies. Neither of them were right. They
One
were both
covered
too
in
small.
urine.
Yeah. Both are unusable. I then had to buy a third cat onesie.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought, I better learn from the fact that she immediately peed on the first one. I better buy another one. So I actually bought 4 cat onesies. So I said to buy 2 in the larger size. So when I added up how much money I'd spent on cat onesies, it was just a depressingly large amount.
Was it 3 figures?
I think it was shy of 3.
Shy of 3 figures.
But more than you'd expect to be spending. So there you go.
On your average weekday.
That was my purchase. So here's the lesson, folks. Measure your cats. And I wonder if the next theme could have helped with my cat problem, because what I wanted to talk about this week in terms of our stories.
Tell me.
I want to talk
Can
about.
I also just say, my mum said to me, "What are you guys talking about this week?" And I told her about what I wanted to talk about, and I was like, "And Catherine's talking about AI." I didn't know how to explain it to her. And I just always go back to that thing that you saw online about someone's, out of your friendship, there's always somebody who's spreadsheets and numbers, and the other one is vibes and whimsy. And my mum was like, so you're talking about clothes and Catherine's talking about AI. I was like, that sounds about right.
That's how it works, right?
Exactly.
Split the roles.
Yeah.
No, it's really fascinating. I mean, AI, so I do a lot of stuff about retail trends, and literally AI has been the thing that has come up over and over and over again. But it was interesting. The reason I wanted to talk about it was I should have asked AI how big my cat was. Maybe I could have told me. I went to an event last week, and I met a guy called Chano Fernandez. He is the co-CEO of Klaviyo, which is an email marketing tool. And I got to sit down with him and talk to him. And Klaviyo are doing a lot to do with agentic AI. So agentic AI is basically agents who can do things. So we've had generative AI, so that's all of like your ChatGPT and Google Gemini, which is it can generate things. But agentic is actually AI doing things. And the reason that's important for retail is that the vision, or a lot of these people who are on the real cutting edge of retail, what they're expecting to see is that we're going to get to the point where these AI agents are actually going to be shopping for us.
Eek.
Yeah. So the example that he gave me was, your AI shopping bot looks in your calendar, realizes that it's your boyfriend's birthday next week, does the research, picks something out for him, and potentially, depending on the permissions that you've given it, purchases it, has it shipped to your house. Or that's kind of the extreme version where it's completely autonomous. So you just, your boyfriend's like, oh, fantastic, thanks for the gift. And you're almost like, oh, what did the AI buy you?
Yeah.
But there's different levels. So, for example, it could just say to you, hey, it's their birthday next week. Here's 3 examples of things that you could buy them. And then you might still finish that purchase yourself. So the impact of that, and the thing about this is that it's not, this is not science fiction. So there's 2/3 of people. They've done loads and loads of research on this because, of course, retailers are busy trying to figure out what this is going to mean for them and what this is going to mean for the customer. So around 1/3 of people have already used AI to make purchases, and 2/3 of people are either already started or are interested in it, depending on all the different, there's loads and loads of different surveys. But basically, lots of people may have gone down this route. So, for example, I was talking to somebody, I was asking them about how they buy things, and they said, they do their research, but then they'll ask ChatGPT what they think. Or they'll be like, oh, I need a new fridge, and they'll say to Google Gemini, oh, I need a new fridge. Can you make me some suggestions? And one which is, A+
I literally
energy
did
rating.
this the other day with the fridge. Yeah. Because I said, I had a fridge, but I have a big gap above the fridge. And I was like, I wonder if I could get a taller, do fridges come taller?
Yeah.
And then I was like, if it becomes taller, can I switch and something? Yeah. And it gave me all the things. And also, when you're looking at loads of fridges and there's so many details, so I was like, well, that's the cheapest one, but that looks nice.
Yes.
And then I just uploaded both screenshots and said, what's the difference between the two? Yeah, there's so many words.
Yeah. There's so much information.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that we know AI is really good at is sorting through loads and loads of information. So I think that, we've already seen this huge shift. So, for example, Adobe, they run some surveys in terms of where internet traffic's going. And they said that during the Black Friday, the holiday season last year, or the Christmas season, they saw 700% more traffic from these agents than the previous year. So people are already doing it. So in other words,
what does that mean?
So that means that, let's say it's Currys, or let's say you were doing your fridge research, and you came up with a fridge and you were like, right, this is the one that I like. And they given you a link and then you clicked on that link and that took you to the Currys website. That Currys tracking will be able to pick up that was like a Google Gemini recommendation or a ChatGPT recommendation. Whereas before that might have been a Google search. So you might have just searched in Google fridge. You might have found a blog that was like top 10 best fridges or top 10 fridges for awkward spaces in your kitchen. And then you would have gone on that blog, you'd have scrolled through and you'd have clicked on it. And then Currys could have seen that blog was driving traffic. Now what they're seeing is that it's the agents are driving traffic. But what gets really interesting is, what happens when it is agents that are doing the shopping. So a lot of the software companies, so for example, Shopify, which powers, huge numbers of especially small businesses, they're guessing that what we're going to end up with is agents talking to agents. So in other words...
Oh my God. It's like the Matrix.
I know. You would have this... you would go, right, okay, I want to have a look at this fridge. And then you'd say, can this fridge fit in a gap that's 150 centimetres tall? And then the agent is going to go to the Currys, I'm just using Currys as an example, go to the Currys agent and say, hey, this person wants to know, can this fridge fit 150 centimetres? And then Currys going to have an agent that serves information back. Because the problem is at the moment, all of that information that's out there, it's not necessarily available for the agents to find. So what they've also seen is that people have really picked up on this, what they call natural language search. So it used to be you might search fridge plus height, blah, blah, blah. Now people are much more likely to put into it wordy to say, hey, I've got this awkward space in my kitchen.
Especially if they're dictating on it, which I do all the time. I don't type anything anymore. I'm just constantly talking it into my phone.
Or if you're a running shoe company, it'll be like, look, I've got a marathon next week. I need a pair of shoes that are going to be really cushioned because I've got flat feet and they need to be shin splints, and I need them to be able to be broken in really, really quickly. Which ones are going to work? So the agent can go away and look for that information, but it's almost so many different things that these agents could be asking for that retailers are then going to have to create their own agents that can kind of hold all this information.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to write a blog to answer, enough blogs to answer all the questions.
Exactly, because it used to be that people might search black evening dress. And so you could optimize all of your website pages to say evening dress so that if it was searching, that it would pick them up. But now people are more likely to be like, what would be a great dress for a 45-year-old for a birthday dinner who's an apple shape?
Yeah.
So there's so much more information that's going to be needed that then the retailers are going to have to create these agents. And I think what's fascinating, again, like none of this is science fiction. It's happening. In fact, I had a very bizarre conversation about 4 weeks ago with a chatbot called Luna, or I should say an AI agent.
Yes.
Called Luna, who is part of this experiment out in San Francisco called Andon. It's called Andon Market. It's run by this company called Andon Labs. And basically, they signed a 3-year lease for this boutique, and they gave it over to Luna, the people who run it. They said, right, Luna, you run the shop, because they wanted to have a look and see what AI agents could do. Their whole sort of purpose is almost like experimentation to see what would happen. So we're seeing that there are shops out there being run by AI agents.
Wow.
And then more and more retailers are looking to implement AI agents into their businesses. And then those agents are going to talk to the consumers' agents. And we're seeing more and more that people are going to be handing over different levels of autonomy. So some people, for example, might say, sure, if you can find me that fridge and it's under £500, whatever it might be, just go ahead and buy it. Whereas other people will still want them to do all the research, but they want to have the final say.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing different levels set up. And we're also seeing there's this concept, there's two different types of shopping that we can think about. One of them is called chore shopping. So that is all of the boring stuff like the dog food and the toilet paper and washing up liquid. And one side is what they call cherish shopping. So that is things like gifts for loved ones, gifts for yourself, maybe also fashion, actually, I think. Things where there's a high degree of people making decisions and wanting input.
And that's more like a want than a need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the need stuff, the chore stuff, I think that will get automated really quickly because
nobody wants to spend their time buying toilet paper.
No, exactly.
I used to actually go with I used to go to a uni with this girl, and she never used to like buying toilet paper in more than blocks of 4 because she thought the shopping person behind the till might think she's got a stomach problem. So she would only ever buy it in blocks of 4 because she was like, who cares if they did think you had a stomach problem?
If you work in a supermarket,
you must see all sorts. Yeah. That was my drive because I am so nosy. That was honestly my dream. It's just I would love to sit and scan people shopping and judge them, basically.
Or is it that one of those things? I always thought that the beeping sound really good.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe one shift and then I'd be done.
Yeah.
Day after day.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much.
Maybe not so much. Yeah.
So I think that there's lots of shifts coming. I think it means retailers have to think about it. Incidentally, I actually think it could be quite good for small businesses because one of the big things that people worry about is will small businesses get left behind because now they're not popping up. There aren't as many search results. So you used to search, again, like black dress and you'd get pages and pages and you might scroll through. And it was always better for any business to be number 1 in the search result page because that's where you get most of the traffic. But the other pages were still visible. Whereas now with these agents, they're serving one single answer. So if you're not that answer, or maybe they're offering 3 or 5 options, but if you're not one of those 3 or 5 options, then you may end up in a situation where you're just not visible at all for your customer, which is pretty worrying thought. So a lot of what's going on behind the scenes is retailers busily trying to work out how to pop up in those search results.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I tried this exercise with it's my mother's 80th birthday coming up very soon. So I tried asking Google Gemini. I thought, well, I've got to give it a try just for the purposes of the podcast, podcast research. And I asked it what would be a good gift for her. And it came up with some ideas. It asked me lots of things about her, what she liked, what she didn't like. And then it came up with the idea of sort of a personalized family gift. I said, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. And then it said, oh, well, here's 3 options. And one of the options was my friend Sylvina at My Paper Cut Forest. Who's a small business who makes these paper cuts, beautiful paper cuts of family trees, and you can have all the family names on it.
Oh,
but I thought that was interesting that it was serving up these results. And this could be something that is actually quite good for small businesses because what it really likes is specificity.
Yeah.
So if you sell something that is very specific and it's looking for a specific thing, so for example, if you run a small business called irregularshapedfridges.com or something, then you may get picked up ahead of the bigger ones because it can say wholeheartedly, right, this person's the best person.
So it's more important to be niche.
More important to be, could be that it becomes more important to be niche. And we'll also just see, will people adopt this? And it was interesting, I was having this conversation with somebody actually at the launch party, and what they said, which I'm not a huge fan of sweeping gender statements, but I think it is interesting. They said, I bet you men would love it. And lots of men.
Yeah. I mean, this is like
how they shop.
How they shop anyway. If you have an assistant, It's like in silly like films and saying, oh yeah, my receptionist bought it for my wife.
Yes, yeah.
And that's how they've always been working. It's just the receptionist is now a computer.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Whereas for women, it can be much more of an emotional process.
Yeah, and an enjoyable process.
Yes, exactly. Like you're like, I don't want the robot having all the fun.
No, I want to do the shopping.
I want to do the shopping.
Can I say I also did my own podcast research this week about shopping podcasts and what was already out there. And do you know what came up?
What's that?
Your podcast.
Ah,
yeah,
the
it was in
Resilient
top
Retail
5.
Game Plan.
Yeah,
love it.
I was meant to send it to you. I just remembered. Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, actually, we've been talking a lot about AI on the Resilient Retail Game Plan as well, because we've been talking about fake stores. That's a whole other story. I won't get into that now. But because of the use of AI, people are seeing these stores which are very easy to put up. So people are doing a lot of research. Consumers are not very trustworthy at the moment. They want to see proof of things. It's because of the way that everything's been going. So anyway, that was my shopping rabbit hole for the week. Where are you going to take us today?
Well, somewhere completely different to that. Almost the extreme opposite in the sense of it being so offline. And we're recording this in the summer of 2026, and at the moment it's the World Cup. Normally I kind of get into the World Cup a little bit, but I have to say I have not watched one game. Sue me. But what I have noticed is all the activity around the World Cup. There is also Silverstone Grand Prix that was last weekend. Lots of activity around that. Wimbledon, lots of activity around this. And it's like, what's the common theme between all of them? They're all sporting events, and they've all become their own fashion shows in their own right.
Right.
So one of the girls that I work with, she said, I want to do something around Wimbledon, but I can't afford to have a pop-up at Wimbledon. And I said, you don't need to have a pop-up at Wimbledon. You could just do something parallel to it, Wimbledon-Adjacent.
Yes.
So the example I said to her was, why don't you host some sort of strawberry cocktail making class or something, because she did all of these really glamorous dresses, and you could get all these girls come along. You could do a cool cocktail making class or something along those lines. Then you sent me something that Tesco had done, which was this cart outside Wimbledon tube station, essentially, where they were just giving away free strawberries and cream. And I didn't believe that the numbers were accurate about how many strawberries that they had given out. It was something like 4 tons of strawberries, or 4 million strawberries, some bonkers number anyway. And I was like, this is insane how many strawberries they gave out. But it only cost them the cost of the strawberries. And obviously, like, the staff, and they had a van. But this is Tesco's we're talking about. It reminded me a little bit of Joe Wicks about how he started. Was just, he's the body coach now, but actually the way he started was handing out flyers at a tube station. And I feel like it wasn't Wimbledon, but it was similar. It was near Wimbledon, definitely. And so what you're starting to see now is these sporting events becoming shopping events.
Yes. Actually, it reminds me of Alicia from the Single Swan, who we both know.
Oh, love her.
Alicia Single Swan, she has a fabulous clothing range. She made T-shirts that said, "You cannot be serious."
Yes.
And was wearing those at Wimbledon.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that you just... I actually used to hate it when people said this to me at school about, like, think outside the box, apply your knowledge, think laterally. And you're like, what do all of those things mean? And then when you actually see it in practice, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And so then if that is Wimbledon, sort of adjacent to Wimbledon, there is also another brand called Odd Muse, run by Amy Smale. Love Amy, give her a shout out. She's doing amazing things. She really got onto this very, very early. She's been doing this maybe like 3 or 4 years now, making Wimbledon an event, like a launch event within her company. And so she'll always launch a Wimbledon collection. So obviously it can be white. It's very glamorous. Molly May wore one of her dresses to Wimbledon a couple of years ago. That had a huge impact. Obviously, Molly May now has her own brand, so she's going to be wearing her own brand to Wimbledon going forward. But Odd Muse is up there in earned media value with Ralph Lauren, Gucci, Chanel, and...
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about earned media value?
Well, I don't know if I'm the best person to explain it so much, but it's essentially where
PR coverage, right?
Yeah, it's where you're not necessarily promoting the brand yourself. Other people are promoting it for you.
Yeah.
Would you say that's right?
Yeah, fair enough. So it's if you've got it on celebrities and then so therefore you're in the media, but you've not paid to be in the media.
Yes,
per
yeah,
se.
sort of like organic traction that you're getting off the back of other people.
And that's how a lot of brands are measuring whether or not what they're doing is a success, right? Because
Yes.
they're doing all of these things because they want to get captured and, photos of them in the press and online.
Yeah, yeah. And one of my friends, Robbie at RMPR, this is part of his job, is to get these products onto people. And last year he managed to get a dress from AIM Studio onto Olivia Dean. And it just goes to show, actually, I know I am a bit of a grandma, but I didn't know who Olivia Dean was this time last year.
Right.
That's how much she's like blown up in a year, which is crazy to think that I wouldn't have known who she was. But I was just like, oh, I kind of recognize the name. She's very beautiful. But then her wearing that, Grazia wrote about it. I think he got something like 16 press articles about this one woman wearing this one dress to one event on one day, which is insane. Like, people could do a whole catwalk at London Fashion Week and maybe not get that much press about something for their brand. So then going back to Odd Muse, she has also released a new dress this year that was the colour of a tennis ball and almost like the texture of a colour of a tennis ball as well. So it was like sort of tweedy, fuzzy. She's got like her signature snatched waist, and then she took a few influencers to Wimbledon to go and watch it. And my algorithm is just full of celebrities going to Wimbledon and getting papped, getting snapped in their outfits. And it's turning into a catwalk in its own right.
Yeah. I was going to say, my algorithm's full of Neil the Seal, the Tasmanian
just
seal
goes
terrorizing.
to show.
But yeah, no, no, but I totally see what you mean. So it's like the way that brands are using these events.
For visibility.
Yeah, for visibility, to hook on to what people are going to be thinking about anyway.
Yeah. And why are they doing it?
Yeah.
Is because it's free. They know that there is millions of people watching these events. And even Naomi Osaka, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. She's been coming out in these really fabulous gowns, walking onto the court, sort of celebrating her Japanese heritage. And they're just the most they're like couture gowns that she's been wearing, and then kind of derobing before she starts playing. And it's spectacular to see fashion being incorporated into sport. But then it starts thinking like, well, what does that mean? Why is this? And there are more women interested in sport, and you have a fascination about why. Let's say women are now so interested in Formula One compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like 10 years ago, everyone I knew who was into Formula One was a 50-year-old man. And now every woman I speak to, and they're, including my PT Katie, her teenage daughter, is really obsessed with...
And your best friend.
It's really into Formula One, and they went to Silverstone, and we were in the bookshop. We were in Saucy Books in Portobello Road, and the lady behind the till was really into Formula One, and she must have been in her sort of 20s,
early 20s, I'd say. Yeah.
And you think, I just couldn't. I mean, I know what's happened. It's the Netflix documentary.
Netflix documentary plus glamour plus hot, nice men.
Yeah. Plus fast cars.
The plus fast cars. But it's I would say it's less about the cars and more about the business behind it all and the drama behind it all. There is so much scandal going on behind the scenes, and drivers moving from one to the other, and the danger that's involved. I mean, there's no sport really that you would turn on to TV now and think, oh my goodness, somebody could actually die in the next 90 minutes.
That's
it's
crazy.
Unbelievable. So it's such high pressure, high state. I don't know, there is just like an adrenaline, I guess, that comes with it.
So brands are tying into Formula One as well.
Yes. M&S did a collaboration with Silverstone.
Friends of the podcast, or we're friends of M&S, I don't know. Yeah. I'm surprised this is the first time M&S has been mentioned, to be honest.
I was going to say about, can you get a fridge from M&S? But M&S did a collaboration with Silverstone, which was interesting. It wasn't with Formula One or the Grand Prix. It was with Silverstone, which is British. M&S are really leaning into being a British company. They're apparently showing at London Fashion Week in September as well for the first time.
Wow.
So really sort of leaning into being a British company. And they did a runway, like a catwalk on the track of Silverstone the day before it launched. And the press that came off the back of that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing I was like, how is this happening? This is so cool. And they had some amazing celebrities. They'd clearly got a box at Silverstone. There was Rachel Stevens there was Marvin O'Doom, there was like every celebrity you could think of was in this box. I don't know actually how they fit them all in. It was like a Mary Poppins bag. They were just all kept coming out. But I also thought it was quite cool the way that over the years, fashion has lent from sports where we're wearing trainers, we're wearing football shirts, we're wearing joggers, we wear leggings to go to the supermarket. But now it feels like it's almost gone the other way around.
Yeah.
Where fashion is still borrowing from sport, or is sport borrowing from fashion? I'm not too sure, but there is definitely an interesting crossover between the two.
Yeah. Well, I think with M&S, I mean, that's, if anything, if you want a clear indication that the Formula One demographic has shifted female, it's M&S doing a tie-in with them, right? Or with tie-in with Silverstone, because if it was just all 50-year-old men, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't all 50-year-old men 10 years ago, but it's just the way, it's just one of those things.
I know, I would say so. Yeah. But also they did have men in the catwalk as well. So it was like men and women. But I think it was very interesting that they had it on there at that time alongside a Wella hair pop-up. So it was almost like done as a pit stop station where you could go and get your hair done. Clearly, Formula One is now just blasted with influencers. So I'm sure they were loving that. Obviously, like Kim Kardashian is with Lewis Hamilton. Who knows if that's a real relationship or not? I'm not entirely convinced.
Showmance.
Alleged showmance.
We don't want to get, can you imagine if we got sued by Kim Kardashian?
I mean, quite cool though. Or Lewis Hamilton. Maybe we'll get tickets to Formula One. So there is also sort of a trickle effect with influencers where she is number one influencer in the world, I think you could argue. And so her being Kim K, being aligned with Lewis Hamilton, and then there is a ripple effect through that as well. But then it sort of reminds me of Victoria Beckham being married to David Beckham back in the day. And that's very much seen as like the WAG golden era of how women were following the women back in the day at the World Cup. And we've never really had that again since. And it feels like maybe a little bit of a revival of that, which is cool. I also love the idea that sports are now appealing to women and aligning it with shopping because women have so much spending power in the household. I read that it's maybe 75, it can be up to 75% of women having the spending power in the house.
Right.
And so aligning it with a men's sport, putting those two things together, I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting crossover that they are really leaning into women because they know that the sport is on anyway in the house. Therefore, let's appeal to the women because they're the ones that technically have the power over the money.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
So I thought it was cool that you don't necessarily need to have a ton of money to be able to get involved in it.
Right.
I think years ago it used to be that the brands with the biggest amount of money were the ones that sponsored. So you would look at DHL sponsoring Formula One, Pirelli sponsoring Formula One, they're, Louis Vuitton, these huge global brand names. And if you were to look at how that has changed, Charlotte Tilbury actually has collaborated with Formula One Academy.
Oh, really?
Which is the women's side of Formula One.
Yeah.
And she's got this whole car that's completely branded, which is cool. But then it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all now. So it's like, that's cool that women's brands are getting involved in the sponsorship, and that is a sign that it is shifting. But equally, you've got Tesco standing outside Wimbledon with a strawberry van.
Yeah.
And there's like a little bit of an extreme difference between the two, but it's interesting to see how extreme they are. And it's just infiltrating everything that people don't want. Well, I guess I'm probably that's why I said I'm the opposite to what you were saying about getting computers to do everything. From on my algorithm, what I'm seeing is that people want to get off a computer, get out and experience everything. They want to watch the sport, but they want the whole experience around the sport as well. They want to go to a strawberry event. They want to go to a picnic. They want to just be in it.
Yeah, they have the experiences.
Yeah.
Experiential retail is a terrible term that gets bandied around all the time, which, it was big for a long time, and that was what they always talked about. But basically it means that people just want to experience things. But I suppose what you're talking about, the difference between the official partnerships like Charlotte Tilbury branding up a car is one thing, but then, Tesco's pulling a van up outside Wimbledon, then there's it's not
they weren't even in the grounds of Wimbledon. They were just in Wimbledon town centre.
Yeah.
So it's just the alignment. It's thinking a little bit more creatively about how you can get involved with these big sporting events. Yeah. Even the biggest supermarket in the UK, I think Tesco was, I don't know if it still is going to just chuck a van outside the station and give away a load of strawberries. It's quite a cool concept to think that they are just being really real.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so on to our rapid fire round to wrap us up today. So we're going to go first with you. Elizabeth, what is something that has impressed you this week?
Well, this is very on brand for me in the sense that it is a meme. And we're going to get it up on screen, but it's a meme from @FashionIsPsychology. And I sent it to you to basically say, this one image represents what this whole podcast is about. Okay. That above the waterline is the iceberg, but then there is so much beneath the waterline as well. So if we were to look above the waterline, we have pictures of some leather sandals and a bag and some sunglasses. And it says, I get dressed because I have to. It's just a bag. No one notices what you wear. Fashion is frivolous. That is what I think most people see shopping as. Beneath the iceberg, there is the profound impact our clothes have on our emotional well-being. Clothing impacting our cognitive function. Clothes as one of the biggest forms of non-verbal communication, and clothes as a reflection of the social, economical, political state of the world. And I thought, I've never seen one image say so much in such a long time. So I just saw it, loved it, screenshot it, sent it to you, added it to the show notes, got it up on screen. It needs a moment. So tell me, what is it that has impressed you this week?
So, leading on from our last episode where we talked about TikTok Shop, I actually want to talk a little bit about Book Talk. So Book Talk hashtag Book Talk is the sort of subsection of TikTok where people talk about books, unsurprisingly. And I think what's really fascinating about it and why I think it's so good is that they've teamed up with the Year of Reading, so the National Year of Reading, which is an initiative to get more people, especially more young people, to read. And the stats that they had was that 51% of young readers discovered new books through TikTok, and 32% credit it with reigniting their love of reading, and that there are 11 million UK books that have got their sales attributed to Book Talk. And I just think it's, again, like one of those things where people could dismiss TikTok and
dismiss young people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
they're just on their phone. But if they're on their phone looking for a book to read, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and actually myself and my daughter, who's 16 by the time this goes out, went to the event. They held an event at the British Library, and they had people talking. They had authors, they had talks, they talked about all of the kind of bestsellers that there were in on Book Talk. And I think we've seen a real revival. I mean, I'm a huge reader, I love reading, and I'm a big believer in independent bookshops as well, and we've seen a real resurgence. So like we said, we were at Saucy Books in Portobello Road, which is a romance, the UK's first romance-themed bookshop. But there's loads of other ones. There's all kinds of, fantasy bookshops and science fiction bookshops, and people really opening these very niche bookshops because people have really reignited this love of reading, and they're engaging with it through recommendations. And I just think that that's really, really positive and very impressive.
Well, following on from that quickly, I'm reading an amazing book at the moment by Tom Allen called Common Decency, and it is hilarious.
I love
if you know Tom Allen, he's a comedian, and it's essentially about middle-class suburbia and neighbourhood WhatsApp groups.
Oh my goodness, neighbourhood WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
I'm all over it.
It is so relatable. I can visualize everybody so clearly, but definitely recommend. And I said to my mum the other day, I sack off Book Talk for me. My mum is Book Talk. Because I go on all these recommendations and then I don't like any of them. Not any from you, I must say, because I really like that book that you gave me. But you know, you're listening to things, and I love just reading what my mum tells me to read.
Well, I'm going to say, having seen all of the bestsellers on Book Talk, a lot of them are smut.
Are they? Okay, sign me up.
I should say romance. Lots of ice hockey romance of various different types.
Well, I am going to give that a go because I loved Off Campus. So I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I hear apparently my PT, Katie, who's a big reader, apparently was up half the night because she couldn't put the Off Campus books down. So I mean, I'm a big believer, though, that people should just read what they want to read. I don't think you can be snobby about it. I think people reading is a good thing. And I think if they're encouraged to read whatever it is, I think it's fantastic and that people are connecting over it.
Yes, I agree.
So what can get in the bin this week?
What can get in the bin? I saw a really cool video by a girl who's at Afternoon Knitwear, and she was saying that Gap have done a revival of their old multicoloured stripe knitwear collections that were super iconic in the 90s, noughties. And I had this gorgeous multicoloured wool scarf back in the day. And I thought, oh, wow, this is so cool. I can come back and get something. But they have been slammed for it. The comments are horrendous because it's not knitwear. They've done printed knitwear on polyester mesh for summer.
Right.
And so actually people are saying, where's the cotton? We can wear knitwear in the summer as long as it's a natural fibre.
Yes, we know natural fibres are very important. Yes. We talked about this last episode. Linen
is great. Cotton is great. Even wool can be really cooling in the summer.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to plug polyester mesh for summer and say that it's a really great fabric to wear? And why are you doing this? It's because it's cheap. But it was really encouraging to see that people don't want that, especially from a revival collection that's about nostalgia and bringing things back. So it was quite sad that Gap have done that during a time where they do seem to be getting a lot of things right about bringing it back. They've got a store in Westfield now, which they didn't have before, and they're kind of doing a lot of things right, but that one, I think, missed the mark.
It was a miss.
Yes. What about you?
Well, it's less of a thing and more of a phrase, which is the phrase picky bits. Which I cannot stand. It literally sets my teeth on edge. And I was thinking about how, you know, retailers have this thing where they create moments. So they'll create something around Wimbledon. They'll create whatever's of the moment. And M&S had they invented National Picky Bits Day, the 27th of June, which was, I mean, I honestly, I couldn't believe it when I saw that in store. I was like, oh, no.
And Diana Vickers did a whole song about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was actually quite a good song, to be fair.
I just find it just sounds horrible.
Gives you the ick.
It gives me the ick. And then I was on Ocado. I love Ocado. I've been an Ocado shopper for many, many years. And then it said, is it too hot to cook? Picky bits to the rescue. And I thought, right, that can get in the bin.
Yuck.
Because it is too hot. And I do want to eat small cold things, but I don't want to call it picky bits.
You're having small cold things dinner instead.
Yeah, exactly. Not a picky tea.
Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, that is disgusting, I have to say. Everyone's banned. And also, while we're on the subject, also is holly bobs. You're never allowed to say that.
Or swimming cosy.
I don't mind swimming cosy as much. Because also Hunsnet, who we also gave a shout out last time, said he's come up with a new one, which is max capac. I've just hit max capacity. Yeah, max capac.
That we could deal with, but not holly bobs.
No, not holly bobs. That's in the bin.
And what are you shopping for? What's on your shopping list?
Well, I also wanted to give a little update that I found some jorts. For anyone who was wondering whether I found them, I did. I got some Levi's. And this week I am looking for a new bronzer, and when I say I'm looking for it, I actually know which one I want. I just need to buy it, but it's quite expensive.
Right.
So, when you're buying something a little bit more bougie, you just need to sort of build yourself up to actually pressing the button.
Think about the cost per use.
I mean, it's the Chanel Bronze Universal. It is the best bronzer on the market. I will hear nothing else said about bronzers. It is amazing. You can wear it as foundation, you can wear it as a bronzer, but because it is summer, and I've blasted my old one, I would say, to be fair, I've had that bronzer for about 2 years and I've worn it down to the end, but I've been using this bronzer since I was about 16. And it's all the girls in my year wore it, and obviously we all got it for Christmas and we're just like, we got it, we're the holy grail of bronzers, and it's never changed. It's just as good as ever, but now they bring it out in all different colours, so I'm going to try a dark shade, which I've never done.
Exciting. Yeah, well, I've never actually. Well, I bought Chanel nail polish once, and it was very disappointing. Really disappointing.
Not good. No.
But Chanel perfume, I wear a lot. I don't wear a lot of Chanel perfume, but I have also, from about the age of 16, worn Chanel perfume. So
yeah, I love it.
Yes to perfume. Never tried their makeup, so I'll have
Give
to try
it a go.
the bronzer.
Yes. What about you?
I am shopping for lavender bushes, not just one lavender bush, but multiple lavender bushes, because in the front of my garden we had a big shrub. It was so big it grew to look like a tree, and then we cut it down. But the trouble is that all the little shrublets, or whatever you might call it, technical term, as you can tell, I'm an avid gardener. They keep coming up, and it looks really messy. And my fabulous neighbour Nina, who helps me out with gardening from time to time, she was like, let's just take it all out and fill it with lavender. So I got very excited about that because I love lavender. It's one of my very favourite things. But I went down a rabbit hole because
there's French lavender, there's English lavender.
And there's different kinds of English lavender. And then I got into, do I want one which is good for culinary use? I mean, it never crossed my mind to think about culinary lavender. Or do I want it to just smell really strongly? Do I want it to bloom for longer? How many litre pots am I buying? So it's a more complicated purchase than I originally thought.
I did see a really cool reel the other day of this girl saying that you can cut lavender halfway through the season. And so you can use all of that lavender and it will grow back within the season. And she just tied some string around it, pulled it really tight, so it almost went into like a ponytail. And then she cut it and said, don't worry, because everyone's like, what are you doing? And it can come back, so you can get 2 rounds of it. And I would really recommend going to Hitchin Lavender Field, and you can go and cut your own, but they might be able to help you as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because you can go down a bit of a AI rabbit hole, as we found out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Shopping Forecast. We really hope you enjoyed it.
If you did, we would love it if you could follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps more people find out about the show. And if you have a moment to leave us a review, even better.
And if you know a fellow shopping addict, send it to them too. We can welcome them to the gang.
And why not come say hello on Instagram? We're at The Shopping Forecast, and we'd love to hear what you thought about this week's episode.
And most importantly, we would love to know, do you hate Picky Bix or not? What is the thing that can get in the bin for you?
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.